So the 4th of July is such a big day that you put it in front, like a 4th of July. You get to the very next day, all of a sudden it's July 5th. Wake up, Damon and Larry. Good to have you here. Hopefully everyone had a nice little 4th of July with friends and family. 10 fingers, Larry. Got all the digits. You come back with all your digits?
Yes. Well, I've retired as a lighter of the fireworks. I used to be the sole lighter of the fireworks, and then my kid wanted to be a part of it. Then we were co-lighters, and now all the kids basically light, and I just sit on the chair and say, "Wow, that was incredible." My brother had a best of show or best in show firework. It was a singular firework that I think he spent over $100 on, right? And this thing was amazing. Just kept going and going.
Good launch, very high altitude.
It was incredible. And it's funny because I live in Contra Costa County, which for those of you living in other parts of the country or world, you're like, I have no idea where that is. But it's a part of Walnut. It's a part of the Bay Area where it's like heavily, a lot of trees, a lot of wooded area. And so fireworks are completely illegal within Contra Costa County. But my brother lives in Sacramento County, and it was like World War III was going off. People were shooting bottle rockets and these huge things, like what looks to be like, not the kind of stuff that we had in front of our house. They were shooting stuff into the sky. Incredible fireworks. And then driving from Sacramento back to Walnut Creek last night everywhere you look, Vacaville, Fairfield, just a big old light show. It's a great tradition. So happy 4th. I hope everybody had a great 4th of July. We barbecued some amazing tri-tip, sat around and watched the Giants beat the Braves and ate some good food and then lit shit off. And it was fun.
It was such a beautiful day in San Francisco. We spent the morning on Ocean Beach. Gorgeous, absolutely full of friendly people, all saying hello and happy 4th of July to each other. We come back, set up a little slip and slide in the backyard for the boys. They're having a good time. Had the in-laws over. Everything was going great for the 4th of July. I nailed my burgers. They were fantastic. And then, like so always happens in San Francisco, that fog comes rolling in at 6 o'clock. I heard the 4th of July. I didn't see a lick of it. I heard it. The mission was going off. It did sound like World War III in the mission, but couldn't see any of it. Unless you lit off a firework within a 200-yard radius of my house, I didn't even see anything. Jillian and I were joking about how, another 4th of July in San Francisco, can't see a thing. Yeah. But I hope everyone had a really, really good time. Nice to get away. I know that every single morning show in the Bay Area has some fill-in hosts today. We are here. We are reporting for duty. And it was probably a dumb idea, Larry, because there really isn't an awful lot going on other than the fact, and this is why we chose a Warrior topic for the thumbnail of this show today. It's always a 49er-centric show, and we do have some 49er stuff for you. How valuable it is, that's up to you to decide. We're going to be talking about Christian McCaffrey's anger at a wedding dress influencer before the end of the show today. So you've been warned. Larry, we'll start with the fact that...
Oh, my God.
Yes? Yes, we will start with the fact that Buddy Hield has a deal with the Golden State Warriors. It's official after being linked to the team over the last 72 hours. It's become official. Kendra Andrews says Hield gets $18 million in his first 2 years and then $3 million on a partial guarantee for 26 through 27, as well as a player option for a non-guaranteed 4th year, according to Kendra Andrews. And look, the only thing you can say about Buddy Hield is he's a significant shooter. The numbers like Buddy Hield an awful lot. If you're a Warrior fan, you've probably seen all the memes and the nice graphic packages that people have put together that tell you that Curry and Hield have the most 3-pointers made over the last 5 seasons, that Buddy Hield has
I think he's got more than Curry, doesn't he?
Well, I don't know if he's got more than Curry, but the two of them have the most over the last 5 years. Hield has the second most made threes in his first 8 seasons in NBA history, more than Klay, less than Curry, who was number one in just about every single 3-point stat you could ever throw out there. But look, a significant shooter in Klay Thompson has been replaced by a significant shooter in Buddy Hield. I think you look at Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton, and as we were saying just earlier this week, Larry, they've sort of cobbled together Klay Thompson's production in the three-headed monster that is Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton, and Kyle Anderson. I kind of like the moves. Nothing is going to take the pain away of saying goodbye to Klay Thompson, but that had to happen. It needed to happen. And I think the Warriors are, maybe arguably a better basketball team today than they were last week.
Oh, I mean, I don't think so. I think they're just status quo. This is all status quo. You got rid of Thompson. You couldn't, you lost Chris Paul. You traded Jordan Poole for Chris Paul. You let Chris Paul walk out the door for nothing so Joe could save some money. And then you just, got rid of Klay Thompson and replaced him with Melton, who's been hurt, Buddy Hield, who's been up and down in his career and not trustworthy. And maybe the worst guy to watch in the history of basketball, and Kyle Anderson. So, they're no better than they were. They're about the same. They're about the same. Now, what they do from here may determine if they're better. There were some interesting things on the Hield front, though, in that Kerr called him and he was, thinking about going to a couple other spots. And Kerr called him and basically sealed the deal. Buddy Hield has never been known for his defense. That's for sure. He's 31, but I actually think Buddy Hield's a great fit on the Warriors because I just think that, he can still move. And if he buys into their, pace and space and moving without the ball. And, this is a guy that can do a really nice job of replicating or maybe even surpassing what Klay Thompson was able to do last year. I'm glad that Klay Thompson moved on because Klay Thompson's done. Klay Thompson doesn't have any lateral agility anymore. Klay Thompson can't guard anybody anymore. Klay Thompson can't come to grips with this chapter of his basketball life. He showed his
That's why
disconnect.
I think they're a little bit better. I think they remove a guy who spent as much time being a problem as he did being part of the solution. Not that Klay Thompson was a problem, but Klay Thompson, the player, became a problem. Klay Thompson, I don't care that I've missed my last 11 threes. I'm taking the next 5. Like that is out of the mix.
I just think it's a more comfortable
in real time.
I just think they're going to continue to lose, but just be more comfortable doing it. These guys are not an upgrade on Klay Thompson. I mean, if Melton's totally healthy, maybe, he can contribute some things. I think I think Hield didn't play defense and sack. He's a guy that if you put him on the floor with a Sacramento Kings team where there is no alpha, where there is no, hey, damn right, you better pass it to me, then he just hoisted. Like I talked to all my Kings friends and they're like, dude, when he was in there in the fourth quarter,
he's a chucker.
He just shot everything. His shot selection in the fourth quarter of games was like he was an epic megastar and everybody else on the team sucked. And I told him, I said, you know what? That's not going to be a problem on this team. You've got Steph Curry. Steph Curry is a constant reminder that, he is better than you.
Right. There's a better shot on this floor than me.
Right. So he's going to pass up a lot of those shots. I like Hield. And I don't even mind Melton, but the idea that the Warriors are better. I mean, they went into this offseason saying, hey, can we find a Batman to Steph's or a Robin to Steph's Batman? And they haven't, instead they were hoping to turn Paul into something. They couldn't. The Clippers walked away. They tried for Paul George, couldn't land him. I guess if you wanted to evaluate them with on the curve of, hey, we think they're going to get Lauri Markkanen without trading Jonathan Kuminga, because that was the other story, Damon, from yesterday. Our old friend Tim Montemayor, who's now broadcasting in Utah, had some details on the Warriors' pursuit of Markkanen. That included that Jonathan Kuminga was not going to be part of the deal, and that Andrew Wiggins wasn't part of the deal either. and that it was going to be something along the lines of 3 players and like a 4 combination of first round picks or pick swaps. So I think it's from what I heard, it was like Moody, Looney, and Peyton or something like that, plus 2 number ones and 2 pick swaps.
Okay,
and
so I would do that in an instant.
I would too.
The Warriors,
but that's not saying they're going to land
everyone on Utah's side of that trade should be fired immediately, right?
Well, no, not necessarily, because you got to remember this. I mean, we're talking about Utah 1 year away from free agency with Markkanen. They only have him for 1 more year. And then how many big time free agents in our lifetime have the Utah Jazz signed?
Not a
now,
lot.
There are some people that are saying that he really likes it. He's from Finland and he likes snow. And
that's what everyone says about Utah, right up until it comes time to signing that contract to stay in Utah. Everyone really likes their time in Utah, and they can't wait for it to be over all at the same time.
So, I mean, right now, from what I'm reading, the Warriors and the Spurs are considered the most serious suitors for Markkanen, but there are other teams that are interested. Sacramento is very interested in Markkanen, but their tipping point is they don't want to move Keegan Murray. They love Keegan Murray. They don't want to move Keegan Murray in the deal for Markkanen. They want to have Keegan Murray and Markkanen. So that supposedly Sacramento can't make the deal without that. Minnesota doesn't have half room to do it.
If you can get a deal done for Markkanen where Trace Jackson-Davis, Brandon Podziemski, and Jonathan Kuminga are not involved in the trade, you make that trade.
I stand corrected. Podziemski would be involved in the trade. So it would be Podziemski and 2 other players. I think it was like Podziemski, Moody, and Looney, something like that, and 2 pick swaps and 2 number ones. Which is more along the lines of fair. I think that's more fair. I really do. I like Markkanen. Markkanen's 27, Podziemski's 21, Moody's 21. Obviously, you're giving away a lot of draft capital. But this makes you relevant in the present. I think if you added Markkanen to the Warriors as they're currently constructed and did not subtract Jonathan Kuminga, I do think the Warriors are a top 4 seed in the West. Do you?
I mean, top 4, I don't know, but they're a playoff team, right? I think they're in that top 6. Hopefully they avoid the play-in with that. But I mean, the West hasn't settled its shuffling yet. So to evaluate who the Warriors are, based on what we know about the rest of the West, I don't know enough about the rest of the West to tell you that's enough to go get it.
He's an all-star. You're adding an all-star big man, and you're not taking away Kuminga. I guess it depends how much you value Kuminga's contribution versus like Podziemski's contribution. Because in this trade, they would be moving Podziemski. They wouldn't be moving Kuminga. And I'll say this. I think it's really smart to not move Kuminga. I mean, come on, guys. Come on. He's 21 years old. He's 6'9". He's got length of a 6'11" player. He's still growing. He's quite a bit better than he was at 19. Imagine what this kid could be at 23 with a dozen years of basketball left in him. This kid, if they trade him, I'd say it's like 85% that it burns him on the back end. I mean, really burns him.
I wouldn't do it either. I mean, Kuminga's still raw, and he's got 3 years of NBA basketball under his belt. You do not give up young athletic wings in this league right now. You just don't. Brandon Podziemski,
not just young athletic wings, one of the youngest and most athletic wings in the entire league.
And Brandon Podziemski's got a huge basketball IQ on him. He is a jack of all trades. He's very good. He fit very comfortably. He fit into what the Warriors want to do very, very well. But Brandon Podziemski, I believe, is easier to replace, maybe in Buddy Hield and in DeAnthony Melton, than it would be the production of Jonathan Kuminga, who was already been replaced. Best player last year. That's the thing. You're talking about Steph needs a running mate. Steph needs another guy. Steph's best teammate last year was Jonathan Kuminga. It wasn't Klay Thompson. So if you could add Markkanen without getting, I would do that. I would do that. And I wouldn't want to give up Podziemski, but here's the thing. I also would not want to give up Trace Jackson Davis. And I'm not just saying this because I went to IU, but I know this guy. Watch how much better Trace Jackson Davis is next year as opposed to last year when he was pretty good last year in the small little bit of sample size that we got out of him. This guy stacks experience on top of experience, on top of I'm learning, on top of I'm playing years in a very impressive way. I saw him do it 4 years in a row at Indiana, and I would be surprised if he's done doing that now. He is going to have himself a very good summer. He's going to be surrounded by excellence all summer. Well, maybe not all summer, but he is part of the team that is getting Team USA ready. You know, Podziemski is, I believe, too. Podziemski and Trace Jackson Davis are in Vegas getting Team USA ready for the Olympics. So that's a player that I'm just telling you, you do not want to walk away from. And wait until you see. Like, I think the Warriors owe it to themselves, Larry, to just say, he's our opening night center. Is he perfect? Is he prototyped? No, he's not. But he's more of an athlete than Kevon Looney could ever be. And that's the direction to go in. Trace Jackson Davis, your opening night center, do it. And then start him as many games as you can. Watch what he becomes this year, Larry.
I agree. I love the kid. I mean, we celebrated when the Warriors picked him 57th overall. It's amazing that we're talking about this way about a player that was picked 57th overall, but that just tells you what a steal that was. If they don't get Markkanen, the theory is that they're going to move on to Brandon Ingram. Now, there's a lot of people that really like Brandon Ingram. There's a sample trade online here that involving the Warriors and the Pelicans for Brandon Ingram. And I don't know that you're going to like it, but it would be the Pelicans receiving Andrew Wiggins, GP2, a 2029 first round pick, a 2026 second round pick, and TJD for Brandon Ingram. Would you make that trade? I don't think I would. I don't think I would just because of what you said. I'm looking to move Wiggins, and this would get Ingram without moving Pods or Kuminga, but you're moving Trace Jackson Davis. See, to me, the Warriors only have one young piece that I'm willing to move, and that's Moody. And I like Moody, and I think Moody's good. And I know Moody's going to be good for whoever the Warriors trade him to. But that's of their four pillars, Pods, Kuminga, TJD, and Moody, the only one that I would enter this offseason willing to move, unless I was getting a spectacular difference maker, and I don't consider Brandon Ingram that. I can't move Kuminga, Pods, or Trace Jackson Davis.
You can't move Trace Jackson Davis because he's the only one on this team who even represents the concept of rim protection. It really is. It's
a tiny team.
It is.
And he's 6'10", and he can pass and dribble, and he's going to develop a shot, and he can rebound and run the floor. He's got a great attitude. Yeah, no, I don't want to move Trace Jackson Davis.
Watch Trace come back with a corner three this year. If not
to me,
next year.
He in a lot of ways, Draymond Green is one of the most unique players in the NBA in that he's a distributor and a shot blocker. He's a rim protector. He's an enforcer. But the more you watch Trace Jackson Davis, I mean, you can see he's a multifaceted guy too. They didn't ask him to shoot at Indiana, but that skill is in there if he wants to be a face-up shooter. But you've got a guy who understands positioning, tempo. He's got hands. He can work off the baseline. He can work off the pick and roll. He can be the roll guy to the bucket. He can block shots. He can rebound. He can score down low. He can finish with either hand. I mean, there's a lot to like there. I don't think I'd move him. Not in that trade.
Again, I think the Warriors are just a little bit better right now than they were last year. Markedly better, definitely better. No, but I think they're a little bit deeper. And I think that just knowing Steve Kerr and assuming that he is going to fall back onto his habits, I think taking the habit of falling back on Klay Thompson away from him is going to be a good thing. I think the promotion of Moses Moody's minutes could be a very good thing, especially defensively for the Warriors. But now I'm worried about Moses Moody's minutes again because he's got, Buddy Hield and DeAnthony Melton now sort of right directly in the way of his minutes. And if Gary Payton II is going to be involved in this year, that's another challenger to his minutes. So there is, it's weird. The Warriors have questionable, fuzzy shooting guard depth, sort of the same way that the 49ers have like questionable, fuzzy wide receiver depth. Like, yeah, there's a lot of dudes in the room. We just don't really, we want to believe in them all. We kind of like who they are, but just don't know. You would like to see a little bit more proven before you say, all right, that's cool. Brandon Ayuk here or not, doesn't matter. The rest of the room's deep enough to handle it. And it's the same like that, I think, a two guard for the Warriors right now. The room's kind of deep. We know some of the guys in here. Okay, I can see how it could work out. But it's when we talk about great shooting guards, none of these guys are going to come up.
I don't think that their moves are awful compared to, as far as what they had to work with, but they didn't get Paul George. They didn't get in. They couldn't turn Chris Paul or Jordan Poole into anything. They let Klay Thompson go. They got smaller. I don't know. This team's.
Look, here's what
at best, they didn't have a first round pick. They got some guy named Quentin Post out of the draft. I think at best they're treading water.
The unspoken directive of this offseason's already been accomplished. Get under that second apron, get out of the luxury tax. And the Warriors have done that. It'll be the first time that they've been out of it. This year is the financial reset for the Warriors that they basically needed to do business with going forward, because they were so locked up into, well, you don't have this option because of that. And because you're at this second apron, you can't do this or that. And you don't have this or that mid-level anymore. Like there are so many moving parts to roster construction now attached to luxury tax penalties that the Warriors needed to get out of that. So I think that was the mandate. Mike Dunleavy Jr. has met that mandate. He has worked the fringes of free agency in a way that hasn't left a lot of Warrior fans satisfied or excited about things. But I think he's made good, competent moves that fit. And again, it's not sexy. It's not exciting. But I think it's a business-like approach that the Warriors needed to apply to this year to get out of the business that they were in, which is we got an owner who spends like he's doing coke at the Sapphire. And you can't do that anymore. You're not allowed to do that anymore in the NBA. There's no amount of I'm a rich guy who can own a team, who can live life paying multiple second apron luxury tax penalties. It's insane. Like the Boston Celtics are going to have a luxury tax of over $300 million a couple years from now. And it's so much of a boogeyman in the closet that the owners are selling the team.
Yeah.
Well,
just this whole, though, Joe Lacob, we are going to win, you are not going to win.
That's okay. But here's the thing. I don't mind.
You might have made the right financial decisions for your cap.
I don't mind the guy who made banners.
We will win is we will not win.
Great. I'd rather have Joe Lacob. I'd rather have 1,000 Joe Lacobs than one more like Charles Johnson or Greg Johnson ever.
Those guys have 3 rings though, as well. So Charles Johnson's got 3 rings. So you can't say that he doesn't know what he's doing.
But he's responsible for like what? What of that? Any of that?
Well, he's the primary owner for a team that won 3 rings in 5 years. So, you can.
Well, all he's talking about now is breaking even. That's all he's talking about now.
Yeah, we're talking about different sports, but Joe, different sports, different rules. Joe's fine as an owner, but this whole he's greater than Eddie D. Let's just see. He inherited an awesome hand. It's like evaluating somebody as a poker player, and they sat down, they had just a killer hand. Okay, they had a killer hand. Now let's see. Now we're gonna find out. Now the The championships that are won going forward will tell you about the Joe Lacob greatness. I don't see greatness. I see a guy who bought a rich guy who bought a team that was on the ascension with a transcendent, once in a lifetime kind of a player, put his kids in the front office and bungled like 7 draft picks. And now, whatever, we'll see where this goes. I mean, this guy's gotten way, way, way too much credit when you really factor in where this team was when he bought them. To me, if you're, this guy's made all kinds of bold statements. I'm light years ahead of the rest of the NBA. Okay. I mean, you want to talk big like that? That's fine.
Hey,
but it's really about what you do going forward. It's not like you've done it all, and what you do going forward is just like, that's just gravy. No,
I'll say
when you talked as big as he talked, you've got to be the difference. You've got to show that it wasn't just Steph Curry and having this amazing streak of luck. Enough of this. What have you built? What have you built?
How many fucking titles do you want out of this guy before you're going to say, all right, pretty good? Because you could have had.
We're not talking about pretty good. You're not talking. Nobody's saying pretty good. They're saying he's awesome. He's the greatest owner of all time. I'm saying pump the brakes.
Most people most owners would have gotten a championship out of Steph. Getting 4 out of Steph, Lacob has an awful lot to do with that.
Yeah, but you know what? That's like drafting.
Hold on, stop cutting me off.
I was talking, and you cut me off.
I'm talking.
I was talking, and you cut me off.
Because I've heard it all before. I've heard I don't like Joe Lacob, even though
it's nothing about Joe. It's nothing about Joe Lacob. I don't care about Joe Lacob. I'm just not up his ass.
The guy who fucked this up more than anybody, the singular reason why the Warriors are being hit by a brick wall in terms of are they still ready to win a championship every year, is Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant turning into a Twitter is going to bully me off the Warriors roster total pussy has damaged the Warriors more than anything, more than the Wiseman draft pick. Kevin Durant not sacking up and deciding, so now that I'm in Golden State, we are going to rule with an iron fist over the NBA between now and the end of my career. We are going to make little children cry. That's how much we're going to win. That was the plan. That was the plan.
Well, that was not Kevin's plan.
Well, that's the thing. Kevin fucked this up more than anyone. Anyone.
No, he didn't. He's just Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. He went to 3 high schools. The guy's a nomad. He's a nomad. He's not even on the team that he left the Warriors for at this point. He's a nomad. He leaves. He stick and move, and that's his deal. And he came here. They got him out of nowhere. They lost him out of nowhere. I mean, whatever. They had a 13-year run. They got their 4 rings. All I'm saying is, it would be like Jed York buying the Niners in 1980 and then being like, hey, man, we just won a couple rings. You inherited a team that had Joe Montana, okay? And you won a couple rings. What you are as an owner is what you are when Joe Montana's no longer there. And then we'll find out. I mean, it's like people said this so clearly and concretely with Bill Belichick. Oh, we're not going to find out what Bill Belichick really is, even though he's an awesome coach who coached incredible football and had multiple Super Bowl rings before Tom Brady and him ever even got together. But there's an awful lot of people like, we're going to find out what the real Belichick is when Brady retires. You probably said that. And you know what? If you can say that about Bill Belichick, you can say, we'll pump the brakes on calling Joe Lacob the greatest owner of all time until he shows what he is post Steph Curry.
Let's say the Yorks never came into the picture. And Eddie DeBartolo was still the owner of the 49ers, okay? After Steve Young's time ended and the dynasty of the Niners kind of came to an end there, there is no franchise in the history of sports that followed a dynasty with a dynasty. It just doesn't happen. This perpetual, I expect you to win forever mindset is like the worst part of Warrior fans right now. It's the dumbest side of the conversation that you can have. All great runs in sports come to an end, and then there is a long, usually, gap in between the team mattering again. I mean, the San Antonio Spurs have just exited the wilderness of not mattering at all thanks to Victor Wembanyama. They had to bottom out in an extraordinary way that made all Spurs fans uncomfortable after their dynasty, right? There is no that Eddie D, if he were still the owner, would have absolutely blown donkey dick with his, starting Cody Pickett. I mean, they sucked. The Niners sucked for so many years in a row. And I don't know if it was just because of the York ownership. It's because when your dynasty is over, things are over for a while. That's just the way it goes.
No, not necessarily. You could keep things going. The Niners kept it going for 20 years. The Yankees haven't died. I mean, the Yankees still win titles.
The Yankees haven't won a title in nearly 30. How many years? It's been like 20 years since the Yankees have
10
won.
Years.
Anything.
They won in but I mean they got 27 titles. I mean they got a lot of titles, and they've won titles in almost every decade. I'm just saying. I mean they've continued to win titles. Yeah, I mean it's
2009.
It doesn't last forever. But once again, it's not. I'm not expecting it to last forever. I'm just saying, pump the brakes on this. Joe Lacob's the greatest owner in the history of sports. I mean, come on. He bought a team. It's a basketball team. You're awesome if you have one guy. That's like saying that Jerry Krause is the greatest general manager in all of sports. No, he's not. He inherited Michael Jordan. He inherited Michael Jordan.
As a matter of fact.
But I mean, he inherited Jordan. So even though he won a ton of rings, and you could point to, well, he had, look at all the rings he won with Jordan. Yeah, he had Jordan. And Joe's got Steph. That's all I'm saying. It's basketball. When you have one awesome player in basketball, it ain't you, it's the player.
Right.
Like
but
any other billionaire,
do you
the
think
guy who owns Lanai could theoretically be the greatest owner?
Joe Lacob never walks in the room. It's Steph Curry and Chris Cohen. There is no way there's 4 championships. There's no way the Warriors are worth more than the Lakers. I mean, New York,
because you're going to say Chris Cohen, but what if it was the owner of Lanai? What if it was him? What if he had won the bid? What if it had just been another incredibly rich guy?
What are you talking about? Oh, you mean the island Lanai? I'm like, what company is called Lanai?
Yeah. Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison. You tell me Larry Ellison wouldn't have won titles? They would have won titles. They would have won titles. I mean, come on. So what? Larry Ellison doesn't have a couple of teenage sons that he can throw into the front office? I mean, I like Joe Lacob as well. He talked bold. Steph, cashed out for him. He made a couple of good decisions along the way, bringing in Jerry West, bringing in Kerr. But let's just, pump the brakes and let's just chart this thing where, let's see where it goes. Because, the one thing Eddie D never did is Eddie D never said, hey, man, I'm freaking way smarter than the rest of the NFL. Joe Lacob said that about the rest of the NBA. So sorry if there's some people out there that are kind of a little bit skeptical and are like, hey, you know what? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, big boy. Let's see. You got Kent, you got Kirk, you got Dunleavy. You chased out Jerry West. You chased him out before he died. You just chased out Bob Myers. Let's see what you got.
Well, I would say this, Joe Lacob.
DeAndre Melton.
We're taking a quote that Joe Lacob said, I believe now, what are we 8 years past that quote?
It doesn't matter. He still said it.
2015, he says that. It's, it's 9 years later and we're still hanging it over him as if it were the press conference yesterday. There was Joe Lacob.
Well, this guy chased out some really good basketball people.
I mean, chased out?
Yes, chased out. Yes. Didn't want Jerry West anymore. Didn't want Bob Myers anymore. Would have fired Bob Myers. Bob Myers didn't leave. Do you really think that Bob Myers left on his own accord? I don't.
Oh, absolutely he did. Bob Myers was so sick and tired of taking 35 calls from Lacob every day.
No.
Oh, no. Joe, look at it this way. There was a huge offer in front of Bob Myers that he turned down.
No. He was asked by Tim Kawakami, hey, Bob's so loved and beloved here, and he's so respected. Is he staying for the draft? And he's like, well, that's a good question, Tim. No, it wasn't. It was an incredible question, but it was an incredible question because we all knew the answer was no. Bob Myers was fired.
Oh no,
they saved him because he won the rings. They saved him the embarrassment. Go ask anybody who covers this team. Cy Sotsis, who you just had on your show, he would back me up. He's locked on Warriors. There's 10 other Warrior people as well. I haven't
seen Cyrus at a Warriors press conference in my life. Okay, I was in the room that day.
Was fired.
I was in the room that day where Bob Myers and Joe Lacob were having their goodbye press conference. I was there, and Bob Myers was not. He was not fired. He did not leave on his own accord. He could not come back. He left. There's ways to do it, Damon. There's ways to do it. When you're respected, you don't necessarily always get fired. You just decided to leave. Yeah,
you think Bob Myers just decided to leave? Come on,
you are taking your opinion and presenting it as fact.
I can get other people on here who are closer to the Warriors than I am, or you are.
Bring them.
I can get Cyrus on here in 1 second if I wanted to.
You get Anthony Slater or Tim Kawakami or Marcus Thompson to tell me that
They're the only people who know basketball. They're the only people who know the Warriors. So you're saying Cyrus, who you just had on your show yesterday to talk about the Warriors, is not credible on the Warriors.
No, he is credible on the Warriors, but he has a theory that is not, I don't think, the working reality of anything. They offered.
Well, believe what you want. I know the truth. I know the truth.
They offered Bob Myers a contract. He did not take it.
Oh my God! Oh my! If he was so beloved, why didn't they let him stay for the draft? If he's this guy that they can't have, they absolutely want to keep, then how come he didn't have anything to do with the draft? Why? If he's so coveted, he was fired. He was fired. This is how you fire guys who have won titles, and so you don't look like an idiot. You let them know you. It's the same with Joe. Did the same thing to Bob that he did to Klay. He publicly was like, "Hey, maybe he'll stay, maybe he'll go," and privately he made sure that he would go, and he did the same thing with Bob. Come on, Damon, come on. You really think that Bob Myers just decided he wanted to stay at a Howard Johnson's in Bristol, Connecticut, and be on ESPN talking to nobody, talking to Malika Andrews and
I think Bob Myers
over running the Golden State Warriors?
I think Bob Myers looked at the Warriors and said, "There's nothing but tough choices and a screeching halt coming here, and I think I want to be out of it. I think I want to go do something else now. I could literally." Be hired by a Fortune 500 company. I could go to CAA. I could start my own talent agency. I could start my own podcasting company. I could go on TV for a little while. I think Bob just looked out at the rest of the world and said, I've ridden the Golden State Warriors as far as I'm going to take them, and they're going to take me. And smart guys know when it's time to exit. And I think Bob Myers chose to exit. Bob Myers was not shadow fired. I'm not buying into your conspiracy.
He absolutely is. No, it's not a conspiracy. It's absolutely a fact. It's absolutely a fact.
It's not absolutely a fact at all.
It absolutely is a fact. It's absolutely a fact.
Absolutely a fact.
It absolutely is a fact.
No,
it absolutely is a fact.
In your own mind, it is, but it's not in the actual ether of reality. It's not.
It's absolutely a fact.
Okay.
Absolutely a fact.
Sure.
I mean, it is.
Sure.
It's absolutely a fact. Damon, otherwise, if they loved him so much, why didn't they let him stay for the draft? If he's so great and they loved him so much and he's this awesome guy who had all these options?
Because when you're done, you're done. When you're done, you're done, and you want to install the next guy.
Yeah.
You don't want
and who decided that? Joe Lacob. Joe Lacob.
Yeah, that's not
Joe
fired. Lacob. It's not fired. I'm sorry. I think you're nuts.
You're wrong.
All right.
You're absolutely wrong. You're absolutely wrong on this. I'm going to invite Cy into the room, and I'm going to let Cy lay it out for you if you want.
No,
you can decide.
We're not doing that right now. I'm not doing that right now.
Well, I'm doing that right now. I'm going to invite him. And then he can give us his 30 seconds.
First of all, it's 9:30 the day after 4th of July. Cyrus isn't even up yet.
I'm telling you.
So we're going to take someone whose
So
opinion will agree with
so
you.
now you don't now my opinion is not good enough for you, and size not good enough for you. You've got to have Marcus Thompson or Anthony Slater. Oh,
yeah.
Because there's only two guys who cover the team.
With the team. Yes, I don't think Bob Myers was fired, and I don't think any of them will tell you Bob Myers was fired. You want to say massaged out of the room? Okay.
Do you think Bochy was fired?
Bruce Bochy was fired. Yes, he was.
Okay, it's the same fucking thing. The guy won rings and they didn't want him around anymore. It's the same fucking thing.
No, it's not the same thing, because the person who was put in above Bochy wanted a puppet. He knew that he couldn't have a puppet with Bruce Bochy, so Bochy then had to go. They were going to embrace a new style of baseball, which runs antithetical to Bruce Bochy's winning styles of baseball. So they went in a different direction. The new GM picked his guy.
Whatever. We're talking about the same. Literally, we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about guys who won, who the people who run the franchise decided, no more. Bob, I mean, come on. Bob got tired of Joe calling him a million times. Bob got tired of having to shield Joe, be the human shield that shields Joe from criticism. Who do you think picked James Wiseman? Joe? Why do you think Bob said at the last press conference, as we all know, Joe loves size? That was a total reference to Joe forced James Wiseman upon this organization.
Again,
while I was the general manager.
I 100% in that moment would have drafted James Wiseman as well. I don't hold that over them as some damning, you guys don't know basketball mistake. Unfortunately, the player just didn't work out, but there was a real reason to be very.
Do you blame the Niners for Trey Lance?
James Wiseman.
Do you blame the Niners for Trey Lance, or do they just didn't work out?
I think that the 49ers convinced themselves that they needed a trend more than the guy that they needed. And they went with an athlete instead of a quarterback. And it was the wrong pick, obviously. But yeah, draft picks don't work out. Highly regarded prospects don't work out in sports all the time. To look at one guy, circle it, and say, well, that means you don't know what you're doing, I think is a little bit much. I think that Wiseman is a player that I would have selected. I was there on draft day interviewing Bob Myers with this whole thing. He was totally on board with James Wiseman. Off the record conversations between commercial breaks with me and Ratto. He was very excited about the prospects of James Wiseman. Everyone was. This was a guy who was regarded as the best player in his age group since the time he was like 7 years old. James Wiseman.
None of that fucking matters. This soliloquy doesn't mean shit. This guy sucks. They took him in the top 5. It's a bottom line business. That's the way this world works. You can apologize for anybody you want, for anything you want.
They got out of it. What more do you want?
I mean, you can apologize for him, but it's a screw up. The Warriors are never going to pick in the top 5 again. And if they are, it's going to be because they're really, really, really bad. But I mean, come on, they screwed that up. They could have taken LaMelo. They didn't. They could have taken Tyrese Halliburton. They didn't. They took James Wiseman. He became a marshmallow. Somebody has to take responsibility for it. Technically, it's Myers' fault, right? But we all know that was Joe's call, and Joe made that call. And Bob basically told us he made that call by saying Joe loves size in the presser that you attended.
Again, I'm going to be. I'm not going to go back on myself to make myself look better. I would have drafted James Wiseman too.
Well, so it really doesn't matter because you're not in that position. All that matters is that the Warriors did draft him and that he was a bust, and that they then traded him for a 2-guard that they had the year prior, who they're probably going to wind up parting ways with now, who's 31 and beat up. And James Wiseman. I mean, you win some, you lose some, some hit, some don't. But when they don't, I mean, to me, it's like, Joe, you own the team. It was your call. Take responsibility. Instead, he's got all these shields around him, and he never really did take responsibility. He never once, through all these people that you say cover this team with awesomeness, have any of them ever once held his feet to the fire and said, hey, Joe screwed up. the Wiseman draft? No. But it doesn't mean that they haven't. Doesn't mean that he didn't. He absolutely did screw it up. Just because nobody's held his feet to the fire, that's just sucking at the power teat. In reality, that's what happened. So they can cover it or not cover it, ask him about it or not ask him about it. But it happened on Bob's watch, but it was Joe's call. And I think that's part of the reason that Bob was disgusted. He's like, I'm tired of answering this guy's call, dealing with his children, being the guy in the seat, but not having the power. So he said, you know what? I'll go somewhere else. I'll do something else. Yeah, Bob Myers has got a ton of abilities, and he can
wait. I thought he was fired, Larry. I thought he was outright fired. You're saying
he was fired.
He considered going somewhere else?
Yeah, he was fired. Damon, he did not have the ability to stay. That's fired. And if he was beloved, he was there through the draft. And if I don't know about you, but if I had a beloved, awesome architect that I absolutely loved and I didn't want to lose him, man, it's a real shame that we're losing Bob. Then of course I'm going to let him run the draft, but they didn't, because it wasn't his call. He was forced out. And you can, if you want to argue weakly that it was mutual, then fine. But we all know that there's no other executive in the NBA that's walked away from this situation or this type of a situation that I can think of, not in my lifetime, that somebody walked away from a championship team with high character, all the pieces in place. Jack McCloskey didn't walk away from the Pistons. Jerry West didn't walk away from the Lakers in their heyday. He left eventually, but I'm just saying, I don't think Bob left on his own accord. That's what I believe. So, and nothing, you're not going to be able to just state, well, no, he didn't,
contract,
and then have me win over on your point. You'd have to actually throw out something that resembled real, evidence. And there is no evidence, because we know Joe.
In an interview on the
show, it's Joe's show.
In the interview on the TK show, Warriors owner Joe Lacob told the Athletic's Tim Kawakami that the team made 2 extension offers to President Bob Myers.
Well, yeah, and that's like and Farhan made 2 incredible offers to Shohei Ohtani, but he didn't get them. And and Farhan made 3 incredible offers to Madison Bumgarner, but by all intents wanted no part of re-signing him. There's a way to do these things. So you don't upset certain people or people in your organization, maybe your players, maybe your fans. But the reality is, if Joe wanted Bob to still be there, he'd still be there. If the Giants and Farhan wanted Bumgarner to still be a Giant, he would have been a Giant.
I think that Bob was smart enough to look at the situation and say, the only thing this is going to do is end poorly from here on out. I've got a lot of paths that I could go in. I'm going to go in one of them. I'm going to go in the direction of one of these paths. I'm going to go befriend Peyton Manning, talk to him an awful lot about Omaha Productions, see if that might be something I'm interested in doing one day. My own podcast media company.
Talented guy, lots of options.
Yeah, the guy had a million different options, and sticking around.
Still doesn't mean he wasn't fired.
President of the Golden State Warriors. No, he wasn't fired.
But that doesn't mean he wasn't fired. That just means he has options.
Oh, so in order to be fired, you don't really have to be fired. You can be theoretically.
No, I'm just saying he was fired from that opportunity, and now he has other opportunities. But doesn't mean he wasn't fired.
The Warriors of his own decision. And by the way, good morning, D. Bruce.
Believe whatever you want to believe.
Well, you're going to believe whatever you want to believe too.
I've talked to lots of people around the Warriors who have said exactly this.
Cyrus?
Yes, and others.
Who is the and others?
Other people around the Warriors, and I'm not going to publicly out them because they work for the Warriors.
I'm going to release your sources, okay?
No, I'm not going to. The same reason Mike Silver doesn't release his sources, the same way anybody doesn't release their sources. I talk to people, and not to mention, this was an awesome situation. I mean, you have to know a little bit more about this situation. Bob Myers is not just a nomad. He has kids that go to private school in San Francisco. He had a whole life here. You're telling me that he was dying to live out of a suitcase in a Hojo's in Bristol? Come on.
Yeah, Bob Myers just bought a $9 million mansion down in in Southern California. He wanted to get back down to LA. His wife, I believe, lived
He works for
full-time still in LA.
ESPN.
Right. And he takes a private plane wherever he wants. He's not flying coach like you and me to get to Bristol, dude. Bob is doing just fine. Just fine.
Oh, he's doing great, and he will do great. But it's to just argue because he's got options that there was no way he was fired. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. It's like just because it's like anybody who has options couldn't have been fired. I mean, what? Come on.
Again, they made him an offer to keep him.
And the Giants made Madison Bumgarner an offer to keep him.
Oh,
and he didn't stay either.
No,
I'm just saying, Damon, that's what you do when you have a popular. See, if Bob Myers had totally fallen on his face and been a total bum, they would have just fired him. Literally, just get out of here. But when you win rings and you want to be fired, you have to do it in a much more subtle way. And that's it. That's what happened. And if they want, once again, you never answer my main question, which is if he was so respected that they absolutely wanted to keep him and were disappointed that he left, then how come they didn't let him run the final draft that he was in the organization for and was there for the whole time?
Not mentally locked in anymore. And I believe if I remember that press conference correctly, he's like, oh, Bob is going to stick around for that. And Bob was like, no, I'm not. So,
but did Bob stick around for that? No.
Would you?
But who did the preparation that year? I mean, I've been involved in personnel offices before. The guy who runs the draft is the guy who did the work.
Yeah,
the guy who went to Chicago, the guy who went to the pre-draft,
Mike Dunleavy,
the guy who went to
Bob Myers' right hand man for several years. He was groomed by Bob Myers to be Bob Myers' replacement.
I'm just saying, Bob Myers did all the work. He did all the legwork. He actually did the scouting. He was on the road. We saw him on the road late in the year. And I'm just saying, Bob Myers I wouldn't have fired Bob, but Joe did.
I don't think Bob Myers was fired, and I don't believe anything in the record reflects that he was fired. You're strong.
Well, there's nothing. Okay, so now if there's not public record, nobody can be fired. Come on, man. You're smarter than that. People part ways with people that they want to part ways with all the time, and they do it diplomatically sometimes.
Right. And I think that's what
lawyers try to do it diplomatically.
Bob wanted to part ways, and he did.
Joe wanted to part ways, and Bob found a way to make it look like he wasn't fired. I mean, look at it this way. If Joe says, I want to part ways with Bob, and Bob says, no, I'm not leaving. And he's like, yeah, we think that we want to go in a different direction. And Joe comes out and actually says, you know what? We're saying goodbye to Bob Myers. Bob Myers loses value
to go in a different direction. You then don't replace Bob Myers with Mike Dunleavy Jr., who is Bob Myers, who's diet Bob Myers.
No. You're misreading that too. You're totally misreading that. Dunleavy is the credible guy who is there, who understands your internal situation. And what is your internal situation? I'm the billionaire owner and my two sons are in the front office. That's their situation. Not everybody would be okay with that. I'm sure there would be. You think you're going to go get Sam Presti to leave OKC and he's going to say, I'm okay with that. I just built OKC. I just built OKC into a monster. But now I'm going to listen to Kent Lacob and Kurt Lacob. I'm Sam Presti. So I'm not going to. You don't get Sam Presti to come there to do that job with your kids sitting there. But if you have Mike Dunleavy, who's already there and kind of knows the score, that's part of the attraction of Dunleavy. I mean, did you see Dunleavy was Dunleavy looking super smiley in the war room as he's sitting there kind of like, as Joe's there and his kids are front and center? That's a very unique position. They took a guy who has never been a GM before and made him a GM. So in some ways, but Mike Dunleavy owes his GM status to Joe.
Bob Myers was not a general manager until he became the GM of the Golden State Warriors.
Right. I mean, I think they absolutely loved Bob Myers up front. there's no question. Things changed when some of the contracts looked bad, when some of the picks turned bad, when things didn't go totally smoothly. Maybe it's a combination of Joe's incredibly annoying and Bob wanted to leave.
It is.
But
Bob
wanted to leave, but Bob, I also really believe at the end had no choice. I don't believe. I'm of a belief, and I've talked to multiple people about this, and I won't name them, but I'm of the belief that if Bob Myers had just decided that morning at the presser, hey, you know what? I think I want to stay. He was not going to be allowed to stay. That's what I was told.
You got anything else? You got anything else before we can move on?
I was told that if Bob Myers on that, because I was of the theory that you were of, with that Bob Myers was so successful that he called his shots. But I had a person with the team say to me, hey, look, if Bob decided in the 11th hour to stay, that was not on the table for him. That's what I was told.
Well, I guess I haven't talked to that person on the team whose identity you choose to remain.
Well, because they work for the team, dude.
Okay, well, I bet
for the team, and then
that somebody would have talked to Tim Kawakami, Anthony Slater, or Marcus Thompson about this, or those three guys in the name of looking for clicks for their stories would have come out with a Bob Myers has been shadow fired story somewhere. I haven't seen it from anyone but you. So I love you. You're my friend. I like working with you an awful lot, but I think we disagree on this one. And I'm not just disagreeing with it because I have a different opinion. I think I have all presentable facts on my side where you have, deep state conspiracy. I've been told in an alley that you're not allowed to even look down about what really happened. I mean, okay.
No, I've just been told by people that work for the team who would actually be privy to this. And that's why I asked.
I
just don't want to bury them because you know what? Joe could turn around and fire them.
Right.
I don't want to see that happen.
And I can tell you that if there were anything inside the Warriors, like, hey, Bob Myers just really got fired, like I would have heard about that too. I got a lot of.
Well, you have to admit, it's pretty unprecedented. It's pretty unprecedented. Name me the other premier executive that walked away to go be on ESPN. Really hasn't happened. Think it over.
To be on ESPN. Now you're locking me in, but
like Mike Tannenbaum's on ESPN. Did he walk away from the Jets? No, he was fired.
Well, he had no success. He had no success to point to.
But he was fired. He's like, is he a good GM? Yeah. Is he talented? Yeah. Was he fired? Yeah, he was. But I mean,
don't know if
there are people, Damon, that leave jobs because they had success and they don't want to be fired. Because if you're attached to being fired, now you lose value. So this is like the way to leave without being fired is just, hey, I want you to leave.
By the way,
I don't want to fire you.
Rex Ryan was a talented coach who ended up on ESPN.
Fired. Yeah, he was fired.
Well, sure. Anyone who's in sports who is now on ESPN isn't working in sports anymore. I think
that's my point is that there is no general manager you think Jim Bowden is writes for The Athletic. Fired.
I mean,
Ned Colletti, my good friend, good friend, works for, Pepperdine now. Fired by the Dodgers.
Where's he work?
For Andrew Friedman.
Where's he working now?
Well, he works for a bunch of people, but he works for Pepperdine. He teaches at Pepperdine.
Does he really?
There's people get fired in different ways. And it's sometimes some people have enough clout where they can like save being fired. Like, you're not really fired. You're just moving on. I feel like we've seen this kind of quite a bit actually in the Bay Area, where guys have moved on and they weren't really like, that's what happens with Madison Bumgarner. You don't just be like, he's out of here. We tried to sign him, but we just couldn't.
No, that was a
cap, but we couldn't sign
in the history of walking away from a beloved player. No team ever timed their walk away from a beloved player as well as the Giants timed their walk away from Madison Bumgarner, who the minute the 2014 World Series was over, just forgot how to pitch.
That's not true. He was okay after that. Wasn't it a while after that? Wasn't it 2 years after that?
But Madison Bumgarner being okay means the fall off is real and dramatic because he was a lot more than okay And then he was involved in what? Some sort of an accident or something, or fell off a bike or a horse or out of a tree, whatever.
Might have been a dirt bike.
You get hurt in fucking Georgia, I don't know.
But I mean, Bumgarner had some pretty mediocre regular season stats. He's a postseason hero. But I mean, they couldn't just say we don't want him to the fans. So they're like, we're in the deal flow. But then, you make those kinds of offers that tell. It's kind of what the Warriors just did with Klay Thompson. We just heard this is where you really got to dig a little deeper. Steve Kerr and Mike Dunleavy in the last 10 days both came out and said, we are desperate to retain Klay Thompson. Desperate. That's what they said.
Right. They say a
and
lot.
That's what Anthony Slater reported. And that's what Tim Kawakami reported. And that's what Michael, whatever. That's what all these people reported. But in reality, Joe, according to other sources, was very cold in how he went about the closing offers to Klay Thompson. And according to some reports, Klay Thompson made an offer to the Warriors of, I will come back for 2 years and $20 million, and they still didn't want him back. So there's an example that I'm naming you on the same team of how the Warriors did.
I have not heard Klay said, I'll come back 2 for 40.
Well, you just had Cy Satis on your show. He had that detailed yesterday. I just had us. You can go watch my stream with Cy Satis. I talked to him about it yesterday. He quoted some source. I can't quote it because I don't remember it. But he quoted a source as saying exactly that. It's in the stream. And he is credible. I mean, I know he's not in the tier 1, room like some of their other higher reporters, but he is credible and he follows this thing very intensely. That happened. The one thing that we know happened is Klay Thompson left. And the head coach and the GM both were on record in the last week of saying we are desperate to have this player come back.
It's the same GM who said Jordan Poole's been a Warrior for a long
Klay
time.
Told us that he told Steph, don't get involved.
You say all these.
Don't exert your influence. Don't exert your influence.
All these things in public all the time about players who are, getting statues. You lay them down gently. Klay Thompson's exit is going to be laid down a bit more gently by the organization than most exits. So I've seen reported by very credible sources that Klay Thompson was given a $48 million extension by the Warriors before last year even started. He did not sign it. I haven't heard Klay then came back in the 11th hour and said, I'll play 2 years for $20 million per. I haven't seen that anywhere. And
that's what Cy reported. Cy said the last offer to Klay was 2 years, $20 million. The last offer from Klay's camp to the Warriors was Klay would come back for 2 years at $20 million in the Warriors.
Cyrus has that, but Woj and Shams missed it, is what you're saying?
I'm saying he did have that. It's on the
Woj and Shams, no clue. Two guys who literally are the filters of all basketball breaking news and knowledge the last 5 years around the NBA. The two guys who have every fucking story in the world missed this one.
Well, if you're saying that nothing can happen in the world without Woj or Shams from out of town knowing it, I don't know. All I can tell you, I can't tell you anything more than I told you, which is that Cy reported that on a stream that we did yesterday.
Okay.
That you guys can go watch it on my 50,000 sub, YouTube channel, and you can go look at it yourself. He said it, and I think Cy's credible. I put him on the channel because I think he's credible.
I love Cyrus. I think Cyrus is a fantastic basketball conversation. Details of contract negotiations that he's privy to that have missed the rest of the obsessive NBA culture who covers the league. I don't know if he's got that. Maybe he does. But I haven't seen anyone but Cyrus Satsis reporting on the Krug channel that there was a $40 million make good Klay begged to come home for less money offer. Because I really believe that would be a big story if it were out there and real and it would come out. I don't think that's one you can sneak past the assembled NBA media that well. I'm sorry. I'm choosing to doubt the validity of that until I see it from somewhere else. That's just me. Call me arrogant. Call me a doubting Thomas. I don't care. I just don't. I don't think so. I don't think so.
I agree. I agree. You're not thinking. I agree.
So Klay Thompson leaving $8 million on the table from her. I just no. How? The whole thing.
Damon, what do you mean how? The guy's made $250 million in his career. You don't think that he could choose to take a little bit less to stay in the Bay Area if he wanted to?
He had that
made from $250 to $300 million. He literally can do anything he wants to do
for years. And I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, so now guys who have $300 million in the bank are wanting every nickel. I mean, it's possible, right? Because there are people like that. That's how they got $300 million in the bank. They took every nickel. Who knows? Who knows? I was surprised Klay didn't go play for LA and play in front of Pops. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe he doesn't. Maybe, from what I've read, and I don't know, it wasn't who wrote it, but somebody wrote that Klay felt that the Lakers were too similar to the Warriors. And I think what he means by that is lots of focus, lots of attention, lots of expectations, and not enough good championship caliber talent in the prime of their career. So he went to go play with Luka.
Klay just joined a team that was
Kyrie.
Klay just joined a team that was a handful of minutes away from being NBA champions. I mean, really. So you know who else has turned down the Lakers this year? Everybody. Nobody's coming to the Lakers to play with them. So I think Klay looked around, evaluated the Warriors as well, and just said, it's time for me to go. Like, this can only end poorly here. Maybe I can be the reason why things end gloriously in Dallas.
I just think it's the exact same. I think it's the exact same. That's why we're at a headlock on this one, because I think it's the exact same. I think they publicly said they wanted Klay, but in reality, they didn't. And they publicly said they wanted Myers, and in reality, they didn't. And that's what I believe. And I don't, whatever. We can go around and around, but I really do believe that. And I don't believe that Klay Thompson could have returned if he had wanted to. And I don't believe that Bob Myers could have returned if he wanted to. I think Joe cut them out and wanted to go in a different direction. And as far as Dunleavy, he's looking for a guy who's got some skills, but also knows their culture. Well, what is their culture? Their culture is my kids are in the front office. That's their culture. That's the part of their culture that needs that Sam Presti would flip a bird to. That some other you think Danny Ainge would come here and to sit there and say, oh, listen to Kent and Kirk. No, he's not. So, but Dunleavy would. Why? Because he's never been a GM before, and maybe he'll be perfect at it. Maybe he'll be good at it. If last year's any indication, maybe he'll be great at it, right? He got Pods at 19. He got TJD at 57. He managed Joe well. They did. I don't think they. Some people think they underachieved. Well. I thought they kind of achieved what to their talent level. Maybe it'll work out.
One of the things that, Mike Dunleavy couldn't have seen coming was a 20-something game suspension for bad behavior for Draymond Green. And then another, how many weeks in a row is my man taking paid time off season out of Andrew Wiggins? Like, the Warriors were done in by two of their trusted veterans more than any general manager's decisions. So
they just weren't good enough. I mean, at the end, this is the thing in sports. You win when you have guys in their prime. That's when the Warriors won. And if you want to go back to their last title when they won, Wiggins was closer to their prime. All of their core was closer to their prime. And they had a couple other guys like Otto Porter and a couple other guys who were actually in their prime. Then you move those guys on. The core got a little older. You went a little younger. And suddenly you looked up and it's like, You got 5 guys. There was an opening night a couple of years ago where the Warriors had 5 guys who were under 22. 5 guys under 22 on the opening night roster, under 22, while at the same time having like 2 or 3 guys on your roster that were over 32. So that's what happened. You win in sports when you have a high percentage of your roster in what we call the super prime. And it's a little different in every sport, but the Warriors only have Wiggins in their prime right now. And that's what's happened to them. If they could somehow, now Melton's in his prime, that was a good addition. Slow-mo's in his prime. I guess you could argue that was a good addition. Buddy Hield is a little bit past his prime. But, I mean, ultimately, that's what Denver is, right? That's what Minnesota's becoming. That's what OKC's on the verge of becoming. They got a core of guys that are all in the prime of their career at the same time. And that's how the Warriors won. And that's how you win. So that's going to be hard to do, is to get that back, because they've got the Steph and Klay, Draymond. Obviously Klay's gone now, but that group is all approaching the end.
No dynasty stacks a dynasty on top of the previous dynasty as soon as the other dynasty ended. So probably don't expect that to happen here, except where?
Spurs. I mean, the Spurs did it, right? Because they went from Duncan to Robinson, from Robinson to Duncan, and then they also found Kawhi, and they found Parker, and they found Ginobili.
But the distance in their titles from the first title to the last title means that that's not really a dynasty, right? Like it
was 2 dynasties.
Right. They had 2 in 1. That was a very unique situation that came with them bottoming out, right? I mean, they had the
Niners had 2 dynasties. They were good. They won in 81. They went to the NFC Championship game in 83. They won the Super Bowl in 84. They tore the thing down, built the thing back up, won in 88, 89, and 90. There was, 90, they got to the NFC Championship game, almost won 3 in a row. Those were 2 different teams. I mean, Joe Montana was the same, but the first team didn't have Jerry. The second team did.
The 96 Super Bowl came around. They were a different team. That was a different team.
I mean, you could argue there were 3 teams between 94 and 81. The Niners probably had 3 teams that won there. So, I mean, they did it, but that was the NFL with, pre-cap. That when you are the 49ers and you have the owner that's willing to spend, the Niners lost as much as like $12 to $15 million in a couple of their Super Bowl years. They lost $10 to $15 million on their bottom line in a year they won the Super Bowl. That's how out of hand their spending was pre-salary cap 94.
Well, and that's the one thing that now will never be really allowed again in the NBA with that second apron, that second luxury tax level, which might as well be called the Joe Lacob rule. I mean, really,
all those rules are anti-Warriors. You can't spend as much. I mean, think of all these little loopholes the Warriors got players. They would spend. There was teams around the NBA that were willing to sell them second-round picks, and they did it 3 or 4 times, and they came away with some decent players that contributed to titles. So what did they do in the latest CBA? They capped that at I think $2 million or $3 million, and you can no longer throw around $5 million anymore and buy second round picks. Why were they so dead set to change this rule? Because Joe started finding players and the league started complaining. And there I go. We're going to plug that loophole. And if you look at the way the new CBA is written, it is impossible to read that new CBA and not think it was directly, partially created to put a drag on Joe Lacob and the Warriors.
I think that's another reason why Bob Myers walked away. Just saying, this is a Rubik's Cube I no longer want to fiddle with, because it's become, ridiculously difficult to figure out. And that's why it's going to be a couple of frustrating years, I believe, for the Warriors, because they're sort of painted into a situation that they're being penalized for getting themselves into in the first place with all their, internal drafting excellence, which made all these players so expensive to keep around. It's brutal. It's freaking brutal what has happened. And again, had James Wiseman been the Warriors' Tim Duncan, maybe this thing is still chugging. but that guy sucks.
Oh, it would
So,
be. I mean, if James Wiseman was Tim Duncan, they absolutely would still be winning championships.
Yeah. But it's unfortunate that James Wiseman turned into a guy who is, never going to see a third NBA contract. He's going to go wash out now with the Pacers. He signed for like a 2-year deal with the Pacers, and then he'll be over in Europe or Greece.
Well, I would just say to anybody, and it doesn't matter if you're talking basketball, football, baseball, or if you're just talking life and your job is to do the hiring for your company. Don't hire somebody off of a short resume. Don't hire somebody off of, hey, I just met them, I thought they were amazing. Or, hey, they did this then, and that is why I'm hiring them. Try to find somebody with a lengthy resume, because
track record.
Yeah, some kind of a track record of proven success in multiple stops, because, one bad move or one bad stop on your resume could be you, but it could be just somebody you worked with. And one good stop on your resume could just be you, or it could be somebody you're working with. But if you have 4 good stops, you're probably pretty good. And if you've had 4 bad stops, you're probably not very good.
So like and subscribe. I'm officially moving on. I'm not saying another word about the NBA in this broadcast, and I hope you don't want to either, Larry. 49er training camp. 11 days away for the Rooks. Veterans come in a week on July 23rd. After that, Brandon Ayuk contract, blah, blah, blah. Now that we've got that out of the way, we'd still like to see that all settled. Have you heard that Christian McCaffrey's upset at a wedding dress influencer?
No.
This is the story this show needs right now. So did you see the lovely nuptial pictures of Christian McCaffrey and his beautiful bride? She wore a very conservative wedding dress. It was
around the neck. Yeah. It was like kind of high cut around the neck.
Yeah. And so anyways, a fashion influencer took issue with the dress that Colpo wore for her wedding day, describing her Dolce & Gabbana long sleeve ball gown as modest. Quote, I've been a bridal creator for 4 years now. I've never said this before. I do not like this wedding dress. An influencer named Kennedy Bingham, whose moniker is Gown-Eyed Girl, not Brown-Eyed Girl, Gown-Eyed Girl. That's a good name for I Evaluate Wedding Dress channel. Gown-Eyed Girl. She didn't have a problem with it being simple and elegant, but she didn't like the fact that, like, Maria Culpo basically, what she think was like forward projecting, shaming other more revealing wedding gown choices. And it's a whole bunch of just women being catty at each other here.
Well, but anyway, we've all been to enough weddings at this point where this is the beauty of it's the bride and her. That's why they say it's her day, because she actually gets to really, truly kind of set the tone. A lot of people feel like the wedding dresses are, the main show, and that sometimes women pick ugly bridesmaid dresses to make sure that their bridesmaids are muted by comparison.
Well, but it's also, by the way, so Christian McCaffrey, he read all this, he heard all this, and he said that this was evil. What an evil thing to post online. I mean, calm down just a little here, Christian. I hope you can find joy and peace in the world the way my beautiful wife does. Here's the thing. So Olivia Culpo has spent like more than half her life scantily dressed. On the day of her wedding, she wanted something a little bit more conservative. She, right. she's got all sorts of I'm in a bikini pictures from the beaches of Belize all over the internet. She didn't want her wedding day to be tarted up or overly sexed up in her wedding dress. I think it's a lovely little choice from a woman who is, pressed the flesh enough in her public dealings. Anyways, Culpo told Vogue that she hoped to be married in a dress that felt as serious as her commitment.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. When you are a sex symbol, you don't need to be sexy on your wedding day.
Right.
That's pretty much it. She's already the stunningly beautiful woman who, I will say this. I had spent 1 second looking at the picture, right? I mean, I just saw it, and I don't even know that I even stopped. I just kind of glanced as I was walking in the room. Somebody was talking about it. My first thought was, wow, very kind of
very plain, very simple.
Elegant, but very, very not revealing. Very, very, No cleavage, no arms free. Everything was covered, and it was it wasn't like a sheer material where, it was kind of like a see-through type thing. It was, or something with lace or anything. It was very it looked kind of like very thick. Like she was wearing like a very, almost like she would be hot in it. Like I saw it and I thought, wow, I wonder if they got married in a warm spot because it was Delaware, I believe they got married
Rhode
in,
Island.
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
And the summer in Rhode Island is probably pretty humid, I would imagine.
Muggy and hot as hell. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? Every little girl probably, and this is a guess, but every little girl probably has some dream of what they want that day to look like. And for some people who are not very attractive, they want to lose weight and tan and show all kinds of cleavage. And this is I want to look like a movie star. Well, if you are already a sex symbol and a incredibly beautiful person, maybe you're just thinking a different thing. And maybe it sounds like she wanted to present it did look very stark and like kind of serious. But I would say this, Christian, pump the brakes, bro. This is this woman's job, right? This is the same way it's my job to say, hey, you fumbled. She's basically the wedding dress. You fumbled. And so she's letting you have it. I don't know if I would call her evil.
Yeah.
I might say that she's
the word evil.
I might say that she's, hey, you know what? But you want to be, you're going to be a little let's be honest, especially at the beginning of the relationship, you're going to be a little protective of your wife. And especially in something so deeply personal like that. And that's the other thing too. Not every one of these people that are public people are truly like comfortable, like the royal family of England or something. They've had a lifetime of it. Christian McCaffrey was pretty anonymous until he got traded to the Niners. He was probably pretty even anonymous walking through Charlotte. He was pretty anonymous at Stanford, so maybe
I don't know. His beefcake photo shoots predated his trade to the Niners.
But I'm just saying, he's if you walk by him, he's a short, he's a short guy who's in great shape.
Yeah.
But other than that, you wouldn't be it's not like walking by Jordan or walking by Shaq or where everybody's like, oh my God, there's Shaq, there's Jordan. He's still a 5'8", 205-pound ripped guy, wearing tennis shoes, walking down the street.
If I put him on a lifeguard stand in Southern California, you'd be like, yeah, that guy's a lifeguard.
Yeah, he's a normal looking guy. And I understand he's protecting his wife. And maybe he felt like this woman went above and beyond. And maybe what it probably means is whoever this woman is probably is in the sphere of his wife.
I would like to know
if she's in a different sphere, he's like, who cares?
Right.
But the wife probably was like, can you believe this? And then he's like, hey, this woman's evil. I don't know about evil. Maybe she's overly opinionated.
The only evil I saw is maybe
I thought his wife looked beautiful, by the way. I thought the wife looked beautiful. I know it was a very non-revealing dress, but she did look elegant and
she looked like a princess.
She looked very classy. Very classy.
By the way, do you remember anything about your own wife's wedding dress on your wedding day? Because I know what I remember about my wife's wedding dress. Number one, it was white and it looked good. Number two, what I like most about it is it only cost $800. Number three, what she liked most about it is it's the very first dress she tried on. My wife had the easiest looking for a wedding dress ever. She went to a bridal store. She put on the first dress. She goes, I really like it. She saw it was only $800. She's like, I'll take it. That's it.
I thought my wife looked absolutely stunning on her. Stunning. It was it showed more skin. It was open shoulders and that kind of thing. Where this woman had literally like up to here, up to
she's wearing a turtleneck.
Yeah, she's like in a turtleneck. Different looks, but it's kind of funny too because that look that McCaffrey's wife put out there was kind of a very popular chic look in the 80s. That kind of head to toe, around the neck, very serious, dramatic look. It's just not quite. It was just a little bit, it's just whatever.
It was old-fashioned. There's no doubt.
It was old-fashioned. Yeah,
it was
a little old-fashioned.
The way things used to be. Not everyone dressing like Megan the Stallion, where they basically, greet you with their areolas as soon as they get out of the car. She went for a little more classy on her wedding day, and good for her. Beautiful woman. I gotta go to Grand Admiral Shanahan in the chat, who said, "All right, I'm back." Damn, still on the dress. Okay, let's get off the dress now. we got production projections. Dun, dun, dun. What the Niners might do this upcoming season. ESPN's Mike Clay doing a whole bunch of projections. For Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy comes in at 3,899 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That would be fewer than the 4,000 passing yards that he had last year. 31 touchdowns is what he threw for last year. Same amount of interceptions. He threw 11 last year. They're projecting that again. If you're buying me only 11 interceptions or if you're selling me just 11 interceptions right now, I would buy that. That's a good number for any quarterback to come through an entire regular season with just 11 interceptions. I would not buy. I would go back to I'd go back to the mine and take my chances with those passing yards and the touchdowns.
I mean, what's this evaluation by, did you say Mike Clay? Is that his name? Mike Clay?
Mike Clay.
What's this based on?
I don't know. Why? I'm sure they get some equation, some math model. I don't know.
Yeah, if this my only thing is if you're going to say a guy, I mean, if you're okay, let's just back away and look at it logically. Last year, he didn't have an offseason, was rehabbing from a very serious elbow injury, had virtually no field time with any of his receivers, and still got healthy and had a good year, was in the MVP discussion and got to the Super Bowl and played well in it. So that was last year. Now fast forward to this year. This year, he gets married. He's 100% healthy. The elbow rehab is totally in the rear view. He's now got nothing but time to hang and participate and lead the Niner offseason program. By all accounts, he's doing exactly that. I can't tell you too much more than Mike Clay, but I will say this. I went to every 49er media offseason availability, and I went to every 49er media availability as far as OTAs, minicamp, so on and so forth. It was noticeable to me and others that Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall were in tremendous lockstep in the final OTA. So what was really clear is that even though I only got to see a few practices, I could see the cohesion of this wide receiver and rookie wide receiver and quarterback. So there's no doubt that like those guys repped it out on the field. And I mentioned that to a couple people. I'm like, man, this thing looks really repped. Like they've spent a lot of time together. I mean, right now, Brock Purdy to Ricky Pearsall, I swear to you, if you watch these guys on the field, and you guys are all gonna see it in July in camp if you go, or in the preseason in August if you watch. Brock Purdy has got a real thing going with Ricky Pearsall. So he's done the work. And then when I asked Brock about cowing, he was like describing in great detail the nuances of Cowing's route running and why he's built this trust with Brock down the field. So, I mean, at least to me, I would say it's clear as day that he's repped it heavily. And I think it's absolutely outrageous to suggest that he's not going to be better. I mean, I think this guy's totally misread this.
Well, again,
I know he had good numbers last year, but I think his numbers might be slightly down as far as yards. Like he had 4,000 and change. I think he's still looking at a 4,000 yard season, a 30+ touchdown passes season, and a sub 10 interceptions season. That's what I would think. And I think that's an improvement.
Sub 10 interceptions is just, it's really hard to pull off. So yeah, if he
what do you have last year?
So
11?
last year he had 11. And
Yeah,
what Steve
so
Young
this
said
year I
the
think he'll
goal
have
of
8.
every single one of his years, the goal, one of Steve's goals was always to come in with a single digit interception number. So yeah, I mean, you ever finish a year with single digit interceptions, you did a hell of a job as a quarterback. Again, he's not regressing him dramatically, again, from
No.
4,200 to 3,900, but he's got his numbers down for everyone across the board, which is sort of interesting. He's got McAffrey coming in at 1,200 something yards instead of the 14 something yards that he had from scrimmage last year as a rusher. He also
That makes sense though, because
Right.
there are more mouths to feed at the bowl.
He projects him catching 67 passes for another 527 yards and 4 touchdowns in the air. So he's projecting a great season for McCaffrey. Ayuk projected for a 75 reception, 1,068 yard season, but it would be his third straight 1,000-yard season. Debo projected to make 62 catches for 924 yards. That would be.
What does he have Ayuk's yards at?
He had Ayuk coming in at 75 passes for 1,068 yards.
So he basically says what I've been saying the last week, which is I think there's a very good chance that Debo and Ayuk have almost identical type seasons. He's got them within 100 yards receiving for the year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And look, I mean, that's the way Shanahan wants to dole it out. Shanahan wants you to think it's coming from anywhere, and he wants balance. And now we're back to do the 49ers even need a paid like a number one wide receiver? And this is the crux of the entire complication around the Brandon Ayuk contract situation that hasn't gone away yet, I think. Kittle primed for have his 5th 800+ yard season of his career. He's projected at 63 catches for 846 yards, 5 scores. How about this? Juwan Jennings. He's got Juwan Jennings down to just 15 catches. He only had 19 last year. And he does have Ricky Pearsall coming in 29 catches, 385 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That sounds about right to me. That does.
I agree. The Kittle number. Could you read Kittle's numbers one more time?
Yeah, Kittle was primed to have a 5th 800+ yard season of his 7-year NFL career. He's been projected for 63 catches, 846 yards, 5 touchdowns.
Okay, so last year he had 65 catches. He had 1,020 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think what's likely to happen is Brock has better numbers than he had, but then Ayuk and Debo have similar numbers, and Pearsall has dramatically higher numbers than a 3rd or 4th wide receiver had last year. Like I think Pearsall is going to have better numbers than Jennings, who was the 3rd wide receiver last year, had. And I think Cowing is going to have better numbers than the 4th wide receiver Ray McLeod had last year. But the rest of the guys like Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, CMC as a receiver, I think their numbers are going to be muted and usurped partially by the 2 rookies. That's how I see that.
Interesting. And you can do your offensive projections based on the fact that you think there's going to be more guys getting more balls distributed to them. So that's going to depress your numbers over here. That's going to depress your numbers over here. Your rushing yardage total gets depressed, Christian, by by 2 things, not only a deeper backfield around you, but an interest in preserving you and not, overworking you through the regular year. So I think that those numbers do kind of make sense. D-line is something that he projected out as well. Bosa at 10 sacks, a half a sack fewer than he had last year. He's got Floyd with a decrease in sack output from 10.5 previous year to just 7.5 this year. He's got Hargrave coming in at 6 sacks after he had a 7-sack year. He's got Malik Collins having 4 after having just 5 a year ago. And the 49ers, who had 48 sacks, and I thought an incredibly disappointing year for their defensive line, he's got them regressing. He's got San Francisco with just 43 sacks next year. If they only have 43 sacks next year, Larry, they're not in the NFC title game again.
Well, first of all, back to the weapons. Okay. One thing I noticed, I'm looking at everybody's numbers from last year. Listen to the games played. Ayuk, 16. Kittle, 16. Debo, 15. McCaffrey, 16. Juice played all 17. There's probably going to be some injuries. They're probably, and like last year, they didn't have any, hardly at all. And those guys were totally healthy. As far as the D-line, I mean, to project Nick Bosa with fewer sacks than last year by a half, he had 18 and a half the year before. I think he's going to get to 13. I mean, you got to remember this. These guys are not rushing alone. Leonard Floyd is an outstanding speed rusher who's had double-digit sacks for 4 straight seasons, I believe, or close to it. So I think he's the best defensive end the Niners have had opposite Bosa since Shanahan has coached the team. I think just the speed rush of Floyd alone on passing downs is going to have Bosa fall in to 5 or 6 more sacks. So I hope to say his number's more like 13 and a half. And I think Leonard Floyd's is probably closer to 10. And I think the Niner number of sacks is going to be a little bit higher. May not be, you got to remember this too. This is a fact. In the NFL over the last 5 seasons, almost every season that's gone by, there's been a higher percentage of sacks coming from linebackers and defensive backs than compared to defensive ends, defensive tackles. I mean, once upon a time, defensive ends and defensive tackles made all the sacks, and then it was like 75% of the sacks. Now you've seen it a lot. When teams want to get home, they'll send a corner, they'll send a safety, they'll send a linebacker on a delayed blitz. Heck, Bobby Wagner, deadly delayed blitzer. Devin White, who's now in Philadelphia, deadly delayed blitzer. Jamal Adams is like not that good of a coverage player at all, but he had close to 10 sacks, I think, last year. So you're seeing more pressure coming from smaller guys. And I think it's a direct result of a league that's proliferated with Kyler Murray's and Russell Wilson's, and there's a lot more Brock Purdy's and quarterbacks that move, and it's easier to bring these guys down with smaller rushers.
Well, and the ball is just out. The ball is out faster than ever before in this league, and that
you can neutralize the rush.
Yeah, and I do think that one of the next trends in how football players get paid is going to be a huge come off of the price points of defensive ends. I think defensive ends right now are currently in their highest price point heyday, and watch them become the defense's new running backs, shall we say, where you're not getting paid quite like you used to because football's changed a little. And I just think that they're, again, the surplus of defensive ends coming out of college is never going in the wrong direction. And the use of defensive ends, and a ball is out on my third drop step pretty much across the board on 9 out of 10 snaps now, is going to change how that position is evaluated. Or I should say, is going to change how that position is compensated.
I mean, there are ebbs and flows to how these players get paid. That's for sure, and it's not a straight line. So there is variable ways these guys get paid over the course of time. But I think the 49ers are going to wind up with north of 50 sacks this year. I think that's going to be a big sack year, because I think the coverage on the back end is, the last year, the one thing that was in my opinion, the reason Steve Wilkes is not here any longer is because his coverage and his rush plan didn't mesh. He had multiple games where he sped up the quarterback and played soft coverage underneath. Well, I mean, what are you doing? If you're speeding up the quarterback and he's got to get the ball out, and then you're leaving guys open underneath, you're basically just, you're just playing kind of this not very much resistance kind of a defense. That's what happened in that Cincinnati game. They literally sped up Burrow and played off coverage and let Burrow just pick him apart. They did the same thing the week before to Kirk Cousins, who just absolutely carved him up like a Thanksgiving turkey. So that, I think, was the number one. You want to say, I first of all, I think Bosa threw him under the bus, and I think there were guys in that room that didn't support him. But I think ultimately, if you said, why did Shanahan say, you know what, we're yanking this and we're going in a different direction? Because the plan to play coverage on the back end didn't line up with the rush plan up front.
I think that when you're calling late timeouts in a Super Bowl because you don't trust the defensive coverage in the most important drive of the year, that right
Suck
there is
it.
an evaluation of what the head coach thinks about you, right?
Well, and I'll say this. My eyes went like this when Shanahan hit the podium the Tuesday after the Viking game and said, yeah, Steve screwed that up. Steve screwed that up. That zero coverage call at the end of the first half where they got the touchdown to Jordan Addison. Yeah, Steve screwed that up. He knew he screwed that up. It's like, I've heard coaches say, hey, that wasn't the coverage we wanted. That wasn't the look we wanted. If we could do that, we'd do it differently. It's pretty rare to hear a head coach say of one of his assistant coaches, he screwed that up.
Right. Here's an entire
that's what Shanahan said.
Kool-Aid of criticism just for you. That was a lot. That was a lot.
A lot, man. And then I asked other guys about that. I asked Forster. I said, hey, what did you think of that criticism? And Chris, who's a old school badass, said, hey, man, goes with the territory. I liked it. He goes, I want someone to be straight with me. I don't want people to, think one thing and say another. And he's like, this is the business we chose. This is the business we're in. We're very real with one another. We're, it's all about sometimes very harsh and real criticism. So he was fine with it, but I mean, it was noticeable.
And if there's one thing that I think, Shanahan is good at is Shanahan doesn't use his press conference to criticize players in public. He's not like one of those guys who wants the player to read the article that he's using the press to talk to the player. Shanahan goes right up to the player and talks to the player. It's why I think players got an awful lot of respect for him. He does not drag guys in public, but his coaching staff's a little bit different.
But it's funny. The in public part was the key. He does drag guys, but he doesn't do it in public.
Right.
But he does drag guys. And he's very real. Like, he told Jimmy Ward, hey, you don't want to play nickel? Well, you don't want to play? It's like, no, I want to play free safety. We don't need you at free safety. We need you at nickel. Do you not want to play? Because if you don't want to play, so he played hardball with Jimmy Ward, and then Jimmy bailed at the end of the year for not a lot of money. I mean, I think he went 1 year, $6 million. I
think Jimmy was a better safety than he was a nickel. He was kind of out of position there.
Well, I think more than anything, it really wasn't about Jimmy. I mean, this is the other part about the NFL. It's not college. In college, there's an endless number of guys. It's like guys get hurt and coaches are never stressed. But in the pros, you only have certain guys that can play certain spots. So he had another safety. His name was Tayshaun Gibson. He had a safety that he felt comfortable with. He didn't have that year. They were really, really, really lean on the corner.
Right.
So they needed him to play corner, and he wanted to play safety because safeties get paid more than nickel corners, which is actually probably wrong anyway, because I think that nickel corner job is so hard that's such a tough position to play, but that's the way the financial structure was. So I think, and I don't think Shanahan was doing it to gain financial structure advantages, though some people, theorize that. I think he just looked at his depth chart and said, well, my next corner's this guy, my next safety's that guy. That guy happens to be Tayshaun Gibson. I like Tayshaun Gibson more than my corner, so we'll play Tayshaun at free, and we'll just tell Jimmy he's a corner. He's a nickel corner. Oh, I don't want to play nickel corner. I want to get paid in free agency. Do you not want to play? You know what I mean? That's when Shanahan gets a little ruthless and be like, hey, man, if you want to play, on my team, this is the job that I have open. So, I mean, there's a lot of tough communication. But what I like about Shanahan is that he is a straight shooter. I think he's a really straight shooter with the media. I think he's a really straight shooter with the players. I think he's a really straight shooter on, with Lynch and the draft guys. I think Shanahan's pretty much a straight shooter. I think that's probably his strength.
Well, he doesn't. I don't think he cleans up what he wants to say. No. He just says it. And the only time he's measuring twice and cutting once verbally, I think, is in those press moments. But I think behind the scenes, he's wildly transparent with his coaches and his team, and teams react to that. One of the things that I see from the Shanahan doubter brigade that's out there is that, his team doesn't like him. No, nothing could be further from the truth. Like, guys play really hard for Mike Shanahan because,
Kyle, Yeah, I mean,
Kyle Shanahan, because he makes them better football players. And when you become a better football player and you put it all on tape, you get paid somewhere, if not by the team that's playing you right now, down the road. And I think Shanahan makes them money.
Show me an example of this team jaking it for Kyle. Now, that's why I got to ask this question to Shanahan about the Cadillacing by Chase Young and Kevin Givens in the NFC Championship game, because I had never seen it before.
Yep.
I mean, you're talking about a guy who watches the film 3-4 times in the week, and I know what Cadillacing looks like. I never saw that. I never saw that in the regular season ever. And then to see that in the NFC title game was like, what am I watching? And when I asked Shanahan about it, once again, he didn't dodge. He was like, that's absolutely not our culture. And I absolutely didn't like that. But then he also said, I do think what you're looking at there was more of an isolated instance. So he's like saying, hey, my guys, and I prefaced my question to him with what I viewed as the truth, which was, I said, hey, Kyle, in my opinion, and I've been covering this team for a while, I think the one common denominator of many of your teams is that they do play incredibly hard every week. But that's why I have to bring this up. It seemed like you had some defensive linemen Cadillacing in the title game. Is this your culture? And man, I give him credit. He could have buried it. He's like, absolutely, it's not our culture, and I didn't like that, and it's unacceptable. And
when we go, like when Kyle Shanahan's sitting on a rocking porch in a rocking chair someday on the front porch with a glass of lemonade, and he's willing to talk about the reality of his career, he will bring that up as one of the 5 worst snaps of his entire career. I guarantee it.
Those guys dogging.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
Larry, it was
guys play hard for him. Guys play hard.
It was so jarring when it happened in real time. I immediately went back, filmed it, and made a YouTube short. I'm like, I've never seen anything like this out of a Kyle. Kyle's teams in games that they lose play their dicks off pretty much for the most part. And it's a player culture. Like, what did we see before the Super Bowl? We saw Chase Young face to face with George Kittle, and George Kittle was like, Chase, there's no meetings on Tuesday. There's no more film sessions. There's no more lifting. In other words, this is it. Here we are. It's Super Bowl Sunday. And Chase Young looked at George Kittle, and he's like, and it literally word for word, I will not let you down. Why did he say that? Because he did let us down in the NFC Championship game. And so he had to reassure George on that live mic that we all saw on the. That's why I love that live mic. That live mic is awesome, man. On the Super Bowl, you get that like a week later. We got live mic of George and Chase Young, and he's pounding Chase Young's shoulder pads. And Chase Young's like, I will not let you down. And then Chase Young played the Super Bowl with his hair on fire. He had a good Super Bowl. He did. He played well.
And they didn't win, but it wasn't because of him.
So there it is. I mean, that's the show, Larry. I need some starred super chats right now because I gotta take a leak, and then I got a show at 11:00.
That's right. I'm 6 minutes away from my next show as well. I got Chase Senior on it. So I keep thinking this feels like a Monday to me. It really feels like a Monday, but it's Friday.
It felt like Sunday, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it really feels like a Monday, but it's Friday, and so at 10:45, Chase Senior will be in the house. So let me read these two and get out. Must be trouble. Who should I take in round one of my fantasy draft?
Isn't it funny? Hold on, Larry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but isn't it funny that we go from ripping Chase Young only so you can preview Chase Senior?
There you go. Who also ripped Chase Young. Must be trouble said, who should I take in round one? Jonathan Taylor or Jahmyr Gibbs? Woo! I like Jahmyr Gibbs, but there's this David Montgomery guy that's there. So I think between those two guys, I'd probably say Jonathan Taylor.
Right. Yeah, you got to factor who else is getting totes.
Yeah, that's a big part of fantasy. It's not just who's the best player. It's like, what are the other options? Carlos SFO says Bob Myers gave 3 crappy contracts, Green, Poole, and Wiggins. He is overrated. He left because he didn't have the balls to break up the big 3. Well, I do think Damon's right in that I think Bob Myers wanted to leave. I don't think he wanted to stay. But I also don't think he could have. So that's the only difference. I mean,
you could have said that 45 minutes ago and saved us 30 minutes.
I don't like that. I want to keep fighting.
Wasn't that spicy content, everyone?
I like spicy.
What's funny is
and also this one, Dusty Gold.
Blake mad at each other.
What's that?
People think we actually get mad at each other. Like I saw in the comments, Kruger, get this guy off your channel. He's stepping all over you and making you look bad. And I got people saying, Damon, get Larry off your channel. He's stepping all over you and making you look bad. And if we're both making each other look bad and we're both stepping all over each other, that's good content, kids.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at 1,700 people watching this thing. Dusty Gold's quorum getting raves out of the Rams camp. Larry's guy. Yeah, I did see that, Dusty. Sean McVay is very, very, very Blake Corum. He's a leader. He looks good. He is going to be good. Dusty Gold says, will Tanner Mordecai make this team, Larry? I'm going to say yes. I'm a believer in Tanner Mordecai. And Relax says, just spicy content. Spicy.
We got spicy for you.
There you go. That's going to do it for us. What do you got on at 11?
So at 11, we're kind of going over a little more of the Buddy Hield replacement therapy that the Warriors are going through. I'm going to talk about your sources and how uncredible that they are. No, I got some.
Get Cyrus on there. You've had Cyrus on. Get him on.
Hey,
let him tell you his sources.
We will. I'm going to have Cyrus on an awful lot. I love Cyrus. Don't think for a second that I don't. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff together. I'm glad that he's branched out on his own now. I'll let you know that there's another.
Well, he's not quite branched out on his own. He's still part of the Believe network. He was locked on.
He's not locked in. Now he's not locked in anymore, shall we say.
Now he's Believe.
I know you know the name, you know the industry. Another just evidence that things are dying in radio. Darren Smith got laid off down in San Diego.
Good friend of mine.
He is Mr. San Diego sports, as entrenched in that community as a sports talk show host can be. And he got let go. So he's a guy that I'm going to be talking with a little bit later on today. And Larry, he's going to be who I think is, Darren and I are really good friends too. So,
me and him and Cilio went out in San Diego when I was down there a couple of years ago and did it up. Good dude, very good radio guy. Hopefully he'll find another. San Diego sports radio is a volatile market, and he's a good host. Also, I don't know if you saw, but WIP's own Howard Eskin. Did you see that? He tried to kiss somebody.
Yeah. And the fact that he hasn't been
somebody.
The fact that he hasn't been suspended by Odyssey means what? Like, did he try to make out with a woman, or did he try to give her like a little thank you peck on the cheek? I don't know. But yeah,
he's in his 70s. Let's just stop kissing.
You shouldn't be kissing anyone in a work environment anymore in 2024. It's just the world we live in, and it feels and sounds a little creepy. And Howard Eskin, not the.
Well, just remember this: when it comes to kisses, in the workplace, be willing to be kissed, but don't initiate the kiss. So Larry, don't be offended if one of your coworkers wants to kiss you, then let her plant one on you, but don't initiate the kiss.
Little kiss for you, Larry. Kiss for the entire audience there.
Damon, I thought that was an inappropriate kiss.
I'm a kiss guy.
I didn't like the way you blew that towards me. I take offense. I will not be going to Ike's and having the Damon Bruce.
Well, in an Italian family, there's an awful lot of kissing. We like to do the both cheek greeting. It's kind of French, but it's also very Italian all at the same time. There's a lot of hands-on communication in the Italian culture, so that's why I want to send everyone home with a kiss and reminding you that angels fly because they take their kisses lightly.
Craig, don't be a hypocrite. I know you're a big Eddie D guy. He's always kissing people on the cheek. If it's good enough for Eddie, it's good enough for me. He's my fellow Paisan.